Hi, Charles Moman here. Well, today's video is about a new lithium battery that I just got, and I'm excited to tell you all about it. Thanks for watching. Well, when you look at the Ecoflow Delta 1300, a lot of the features look just like many of the other brands, but I'm going to tell you right now a couple of features that you don't see, but they are huge. One of them is this is a 1300 watt lithium battery, but it has an 1800 watt inverter. That simply means it opens up the door for you to be able to plug in so many different things. And now it doesn't mean you can run everything for hours and hours, but it really is a game changer there. And the second thing, which is even more important to me, is how crazy fast this thing recharges. If you've looked at other lithiums, and I've got a couple of others, 160 and a 500, the hours that it takes to recharge it, if you get it down to zero, it's a lot of hours. If you take this down to zero, and I took this down to zero running the air conditioner in this camper, and I'll tell you about that. I ran it down to zero, brought it in the house, let it cool down, plugged it in, and it was full in 1 hour and 42 minutes. That is amazing. If you want to go up to 80%, it takes like barely an hour, if an hour, to get it up to 80%. Now, my wife and I rarely run our batteries down past 40%, 30% at the most, and so it's pretty easy for us to recharge our other batteries, but now we can run more power-hungry devices and get this recharge one way or the other and be ready for another day. So I'll be talking more about that, but now let me talk about the standard features, and I'll go pretty fast on those. Well, as I said, I don't do unboxing, but what came in the box? Well, a power cord. I love this power cord. Why? Look, it's a cord, no power brick. I really, really like that. You also get a car charger, so you can plug this into your cigarette lighter. I have an extension cord that I use so I can put any of my lithium batteries anywhere in our van when we're traveling, so I'm not restricted to just this length. Standard plug-in for your car cigarette lighter, and then they use an XT60 connector that will plug in. I'll show you where that plugs in. And then it also includes another cord with an XT60 connector to plug in, and then standard MC4 connectors to solar cables. And so you don't have to just use the Ecoflow solar panels, and I've got that, a 110 that they sent me as well, and I'll show you that very briefly. But you can use any solar panel because this is the standard using MC4 connectors, and so you're not restricted. So that's what comes in the box besides a warranty and information card and things like that. So let's talk about the basic specs. It's about 31 pounds, so it's not super light, but it does have a lot of power. The dimensions are 15.7 by 8.3 by 10.6 inches. The Delta has 4 USB-A ports. 2 of them are the standard 5 volt, and then 2 of the fast charge 12 volt. There are also 2 USB-C ports that are 20 volt, 3 amp. So if we turn the Delta around, we see that it has 6 standard AC outlets, and that's telling you there's a lot of power to be used here. And remember, you can plug devices into this and get as much as 1800 watts, and you actually can have surges up to 3300. Down below you see a typical port for DC devices, so like a 12 volt refrigerator. My wife's got a heated mattress pad that we would plug into it. And what's very important is it's regulated. Not all lithium power banks have a regulated port, and that means no matter what the state of charge is, whether it's 100% or 50 or 20, it constantly sends out 13.6 volts. And that's crucial for some devices. In particular, there are some 12 volt refrigerators that are very sensitive, and if it's not regulated, what that means is it won't send out that solid 13.6. It'll drop down to 12 and 11, 10, and then your device will turn off. So make sure, whether you buy this or another lithium, make sure it's a regulated 12 volt port. So on the side here, we lift up this door, and this is where we plug in the cord to go to your solar panel. It's the XT60 connector right here. We've got a reset button. This unit has so many levels of protection, but if you overload it and need to reset it, you push this button and then you plug into the wall outlet with the cord right here. Also, I want to mention that on both sides you see these vents, so they have fans that keep it cooled down, and it's really important with a battery with this kind of power, and especially when it's doing fast recharging. It does generate a lot of heat, and so it's important to get that air moving. Well, let's talk about the display panel. It's definitely state-of-the-art. I hold this button, and you get a lot of information on here. you've got an animated circle that will be moving as you are charging or discharging. So it shows you the percentages. Over here it shows you the input that's coming either from AC or solar or from your car charger. And the bottom row here shows the watts that are being used. Over on the left, it will show a state of charge. And so what I mean by that is, if you are charging, say from 0 whatever, it'll tell you an estimated time, and it's usually pretty accurate. It'll tell you how many hours or minutes it will take to recharge it back up to 100%. And then also, if you are running something like, say, when I was running a space heater, they showed me, all the watts that were being used, and it tells you roughly how long you can expect that device to be running using that level of power. Now, when I was running the AC, it would kick in, and so I would see the watts being used here, and it would give me a shorter time. But then when the compressor would go off and it would drop down to 50 watts or so, all of a sudden it would jump up and say, I can do this for 15 hours. And then when the compressor would kick in, you see those hours drop down. So you can't, something like that goes off and on like that. You can't just trust one number. It's going to be kind of an average, but it's a great display. And then down here it shows you lights will come up. You don't really see them now, but if you have an over temperature, under temperature, over voltage, all of those warnings that this has got built into it, and it's got a bunch, those will light up and give you an error code, or it will show you what's what. And so this tells you so much more than others that just have like a battery and it just shows you segments. This gives you much more detailed information, and it's a great display. It tells you so much. Well, now I'd like to just briefly talk about a few more technical aspects about this. If you want to really know the super details, down below I'm going to have links for 2 channels, the Will Prowse channel and the Hobotech channel. And those guys do reviews, but they don't just do reviews. They take them and they run these through the mill. They try to kill them. And so they check every single aspect about it. And so they check for the capacity, for example. This is a 1300, but all these batteries, whatever the number of watts it says it has, they typically are never quite that much. So this one won't have a full 1300, and none of the others do as well. So if you look at those channels, they'll tell you all about that. I want to talk about that fast recharging. When you recharge that fast, it generates a lot of heat, and that will cause lithium batteries, it will cut down on their life cycles. And what a life cycle means is if you run it down to 0 and recharge it, that's one cycle. And so some of the other batteries have 1,000, 2,000 life cycles, but they also take longer to recharge. This one's rated at 800, and you think, oh my goodness, that's so much less. Well, if you're a full timer, you would run this hard probably, and this might not meet your needs because you may need to run this down every single day and then recharge it back to 100%, however you do it, whether it's AC or a generator or solar. And so you would probably hit the max in 2 or 3 years. And so all that means is at that point, after 800 full recharges, it drops down to a capacity of about 60%, which is, they all do that. Some of them not down that far, but they all do that. But now I am not worried about that at all because I'm a typical camper. Remember, weekend campers, occasional long trip. And then this would sit for months sometimes not really being used. So I fully expect to get 7 to 10 years out of this easily because I'm not going to let it get down to 0 very often anyway. So that affects enormously how many cycles that you're going to get out of that. So I really wouldn't worry about that 800 compared to some that have a much higher number. But you're getting the benefit of this thing charging up so fast. So that's a really important detail for you to know. Well, my wife and I have survived just fine without this powerful 1300 watt lithium power bank. We already have a 500 watt and a 160. And everywhere we go, we run our LED lights. I can run the Max Air fan that I put on top of this camper. I have a passive vent so we can pull air through. And that's all we need most of the time. When we're in Colorado in a few weeks, Rocky Mountain, we probably will not even need to run that much because it's still going to be a little cool at night. But what about places where it might get hot? Well, I'm retired. I can pick and choose when I camp, but sometimes you're still going to hit some hot weather. If we're in shore power, we plug it in, we run the air conditioner. But if we are traveling, for example, going out to Colorado and back, we're going to stop somewhere in Kansas, maybe at one of the rest areas along the highway or a Cracker Barrel. And if it turns out to be hot, which it probably will be, we actually could use this to run the air conditioner some. Now, I did a strange test for me yesterday. I put the camper on the driveway in the bright sun. It was in the 80s. I put a thermometer on the top. It was like 100 degrees. And I turned the air conditioner on, plugged it into this, turned the air conditioner on, and I set it to 70 degrees. It's a typical 5,000 BTU home air conditioner. We would never run it that cold anyway. You'd freeze in this thing. But I went ahead and did that anyway just to kind of push it, and it ran for a good solid 3.5 hours. But we wouldn't be running it like that. We would be stopped at a Cracker Barrel or a rest area, plug it in, turn it on, and we would probably have it set at 75, 76 degrees roughly. And even if it's a hot day, it will eventually cool down some, won't it? And so I'm estimating we could probably easily maybe watch a movie or something with the fan going and then decide, okay, we want to sleep, let's cool down the camper. And I think we could probably run it for 5 to 7 hours on low cool and not freezing cold. And then during the night, if this goes off, if we run it down to zero, then we just turn the fan back on with one of the other batteries, and we're fine. And then the next day, as we drive, in about 5 hours of driving, it would be recharged. So I think it opens up the possibilities, and I want to give you another possibility. We do not normally carry our Honda generator like we used to. But if I knew that I was going to be in a really hot place, for example, if we went back to Utah and I did some Milky Way filming at Capitol Reef National Park, I would probably bring my Honda generator with me, because what I could do is, hot at night, do just what I said with on that rest area in Kansas. I could run this at night just to cool things down, then run the fan. And then the next day, there's no shore power there at that national park or most national parks, but they do have an hour and a half in the morning, an hour and a half in the afternoon, early evening, where you could run a generator. So in that hour and a half, I can get this run back almost all the way up to 100%. I'm ready for the next night. So if you strategize, you could probably run your air conditioner for some hours at night to cool off before the night air cools. And some people have air conditioners that even use less power than this one. So, well, let me insert here a short little update. I didn't like that test that I did where the camper was sitting in the sun. That's not how we would use the Delta to run the air conditioner to cool it down at night. So what I did was had the camper in the garage, and I started it very, very early this morning and set it on low cool, about 72, 73 degrees or so, which my wife and I could take. And lo and behold, it ran for 7 hours. Now, I understand there's a lot of variables in the situation, humidity and the heat and all that, but this, I think this replicated a bit more what would happen at a campground typically for us if we didn't have shore power or we're at a rest area. So I want to give you that update, and there's also a 5-minute video that's ready right now for you to see where I give more tips and strategies about getting this charged up in various situations. What I also did, I ran a test with a typical Mr. Coffee, and I did a full pot, and it took the battery down about to 96, 95%. Did a full pot of coffee. I ran a small microwave, and I boiled some water in a very large cup, and that ran it for 4 or 5 minutes on high. And again, it did not drop it that far, and I'll let you see a picture or two of that. And so if you are prudent and do your math and figure things out, you can run much more powerful things. Now, I did try a space heater, and the space heater is really hungry, power hungry. And so you might be able to get an hour, hour and a half of that at full if you turn it way down. I think our strategy would be, if we were cold, we might just plug it in to this and just run it for 5 or 10 minutes to knock the chill out of the air in the morning as we get dressed. My wife has a heated mattress pad that we can run with the 500 just fine, but we could plug this in, or even a regular electric blanket, and we would be fine. As far as everything else, it doesn't take much of anything, like I said, to run those LED lights, recharge, all of our electronics, watch a movie, and all that. So that's why I think this unit might have so much appeal to people, because it opens the door for you to run things. And that would include a CPAP as well. I don't know much about them, and they all have different power usage, but I know if you use a humidifier and everything else, they eat a lot more energy. And I think I saw where someone said they could run theirs on full, I forget what the brand was, with humidifier and all, for 2 or 3 nights, I think at least, before they had to recharge this. And so if you don't use a humidifier, then you could run it a lot more. So a lot of uses, and I think this is just going to be a great device for many people. So there you have my quick overview of the Ecoflow Delta 1300. I think it's a great unit. It's head and shoulders above the others with that recharge time and the inverter that's 1800, allowing surges up to 3300. As I said, it opens up the door to other devices that you can use that you couldn't before with a unit that's only 500 watts. So I hope this has been helpful for you. And again, if you really want to know a lot more details, check those links to those other channels, and they will have all the details you want. Thanks for watching.